This presentation is on the amazing prophecy in the biblical book of Daniel in chapter 8. Daniel was in Shushan when he saw a vision, a ram which had two horns. Shushan is in modern Iraq, ancient Babylon. Daniel 8 verse 20 tells us that the ram which thou sawest with the two horns are the kings of Media and Persia. It was at the time of the Medo-Persian Empire. The Persian Empire was large. It extended from India across to Greece and down into North Africa. In Daniel chapter 8 and verse 5, he sees a he-goat coming from the west, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Now he's in Babylon, and west, of course, is Asia Minor and Greece. I saw him come close unto the ram, he says, and he broke his two horns. Daniel 8 verse 21, he tells us the rough goat is the king of Greece, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. History tells us that this must have been Alexander the Great who conquered Persia. He was the first king of the Greek Empire. Some of Alexander's successors are represented on their coins with goat horns, according to Thomas Newton's dissertation on the prophecies. So significant that in Daniel's vision he sees greed, typified as a goat. The ancient Greeks called large waves in the sea Aegis, or jumping goats. So they named their part of the Mediterranean the Aegean Sea. Alexander conquered the area occupied by the Persians, stretching it from India across to Greece, Macedonia, and into North Africa, and of course the Holy Land. Alexander captured the city of Jerusalem in the Holy Land in 333 BC. The Jews apparently also did altogether with one voice salute Alexander. And when the book of Daniel was showed him, wherein Daniel declared that one of the Greeks should destroy the empire of the Persians, then Alexander supposed that it was himself. He was the person intended. That's recorded for us in the Antiquities of the Jews by Josephus. In Daniel 8 verse 8, he tells us now in the vision that the he-goat waxed very great, and when it was strong, the great horn, Alexander the Great, was broken, and for it came up four in its place. And so history tells us that Alexander's Greek Empire was divided between his four generals: Ptolemy in Egypt, Seleucus in Syria, Lysimachus in Asia Minor, and Cassander in Greece. Daniel 8 verse 9, and out of one of them, that's the four horns or the four divisions of the Greek Empire, came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great. He then sees how the small horn which waxed very great in his words, by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of the sanctuary cast down. The daily sacrifice, well, that took place in the Jerusalem temple, and the sanctuary was, of course, the temple itself. And this existed during the period of the Greek Empire. So the daily sacrifice to Daniel and the sanctuary would all be related to the temple in Jerusalem. So it was that the Greek Empire was succeeded by the Roman Empire, which in AD 70 caused the daily sacrifice of the temple in Jerusalem to be taken away and the sanctuary cast down and destroyed. This is an artist's impression of the temple that stood in ancient Jerusalem. It was much improved by Herod the Great. Jesus prophesied in 33 AD, when you shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, well, this must mean the temple, Jerusalem. Then let them that be in Judea flee to the mountains. Trouble was coming. Many of them, of course, did. The Roman Emperor Vespasian struck a coin in 71 AD to celebrate the destruction of Jerusalem. If Dea capta, Judea conquered. Francesco Hayes attempts to portray the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem and all the carnage. The Roman standard was erected on the temple site. Truly an abomination to the Jewish people, now defeated. In Daniel chapter 8, 13 to 14, the question is asked, how long shall the sanctuary and the host be trodden underfoot? The answer comes back, 2,300 days, and then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Now, in a message to the prophet Ezekiel, God had said to him, I have appointed thee each day for a year. In other words, one day of prophecy represents a year in actual history. And therefore, 2,300 days would represent 2,300 years in history. Adam Clarke was a British Methodist biblical scholar. He took 40 years to compile his commentary of the Bible. And he writes a commentary on Daniel chapter 8. He says that the prophetic day should be understood here, as in other parts of this prophet, and must signify so many years. So he understood the principle of a day prophetically, meaning a year historically. He goes on to say that if we date these years, that's the 2300, from the vision of the he-goat, that's Alexander invading Asia, then we start with the date BC 334. 2,300 years from that time, he says, will reach to AD 1966, or 141 years from the present, and he was writing this in 1825. So, 334 BC was the year when Alexander's armies crossed the Hellespont to invade Persia and ultimately take over the Persian Empire. Now, if Adam Clarke had added 1 year for crossing over from BC to AD, as he should have done, he would not have predicted 1966, but rather 1967. 334 BC add 2,300 years and bring us to 1967. On to 2,300 days, 2,300 years in history, the sanctuary would then be cleansed. How do we see this work out in history? Well, during the Six-Day War in Israel of 1967, one of the most remarkable military battles in the whole of human history, the Jews managed to defeat the combined forces of Egypt, Syria and Jordan, and importantly, regain Jerusalem. The Jews then commenced a major clean-up operation in the city of Jerusalem. The Jews restored Hebrew worship, particularly at the Western Wall. So the question is, was this a cleansing of the sanctuary? After all, this was the site of the ancient temple in Jerusalem. Is Bible prophecy fulfilled as the Jews established themselves in the Holy Land? A question we must ask. Ezekiel says, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, whither they be gone, and I will bring them into their own land. So is this a fulfillment of Bible prophecy? The Jews establishing themselves in the Holy Land? Historical and archaeological evidence, both biblical and secular, demonstrates that only a very small remnant from 3 of Israel's 12 tribes are known as Jews. Most of Israel's 12 tribes, millions of them, left the Holy Land before and after the Assyrian captivities in the 8th century BC. It can be demonstrated that their descendants as Gentiles formed the Christian nations in Asia and Europe. The Jewish Encyclopedia, Volume 12, states that the Israelites, who were subjugated by the Assyrian power, disappear from the pages of history. The scriptures speak of a future restoration of Israel. The 10 tribes, that's tribes other than the Jews, are certainly in existence, they said. Obviously they must exist under a different name. Jesus Christ told his disciples that they must reach out to these lost sheep of the house of Israel. Clearly he distinguishes between them and the Jews of his day. Now, the Reverend Dr. Moses Edry was a 19th century professor of modern and Oriental languages. He investigated the destiny of the so-called lost tribes, or 10 tribes of Israel. And he published an historical account of his findings. In commenting on the prophet Isaiah's predictions regarding the Israelites, he says the prophet Isaiah declares that the Israelites shall come from the isles of the sea. In reality, the 10 tribes, separated from the rest, not only inhabited places very remote from the Holy Land, but are concealed in the extremities of the earth, and in provinces peopled by Gentiles. The prophet Ezekiel declared that in time, not only the Jews, but also the lost tribes, the Gentilized 10 tribes of Israel, would be reunited back into the Holy Land. In Ezekiel 37, he has a vision of 2 sticks. Take the one stick, and he said, and write upon it for Judah, the Jews. Then take another stick and write upon it for Joseph, the 10 tribes, and for all the house of Israel, his companions, and join them one to another, and I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel. Jews returning to possess the Holy Land before the rest of Israel? Well, it's in keeping with a Bible principle. In Judges chapter 1, who will go up and capture the land first? Speaking of the land of Canaan. Judah shall go up. Behold, I have delivered the land into his hand. It's Judah first. Meanwhile, God has honoured his promises to Jacob Israel in the Christian nations of the Anglo-Saxon, Celtic and related peoples. Thou shalt spread abroad to the west, to the east, to the north and the south, is one of the prophetic utterances. A nation and company of nations shall move thee. In thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. A reference which most commentators agree refers to the spreading of the Christian gospel.